Aokiji is the most morally ambiguous character in One Piece. He once stood as one of the primary pillars of the worst organization in the world government, and has since left said organization to join the other worst organization in the world, the Blackbeard Pirates. And yet at the same time, most readers believe that he's not actually an evil character, which makes his choices and his path all the more confusing. While Aokiji has made some terrible mistakes in the past, mistakes that he clearly regrets and has learned from, how do we reconcile that with his contradictory actions in the modern day? After admirably fighting against an unjust regime change in the Marines, he then decided to pull a 180 and start helping the worst pirate in the world. As Doflamingo asked, what does Aokiji really want? What is this man's true goal? What are we supposed to think of him? Well, the full puzzle of Aokiji can actually be pieced together through the details of his dialogue throughout the story, and altogether it makes for a picture of maybe the most nuanced character in the series. An extremely flawed but ultimately repentant man, walking the darkest path to bring the most good in the world, sacrificing his reputation to do so. But before we get into it, make sure to subscribe. And just like Oda is keeping Aokiji's motivations a secret, so too can you keep your data secret online with Surfshark VPN, the sponsor for this video. Surfshark is an award-winning VPN, and in case you don't know, VPNs allow you to virtually swap your location online to anywhere in the world, meaning that you can get access right now to free streaming in other countries that you are blocked from accessing in the United States. That means you could even get access to anime that is only available for free streaming in Japan, not to mention movies and shows from other countries. And on top of that, Surfshark completely protects you while you surf the web. While you're using Surfshark, no one can get your information. No big companies, no cyber criminals, nothing. You are invisible because Surfshark encrypts your data and makes sure that nothing about your personal identity can be tracked. Even Surfshark itself doesn't monitor or track what you do online. And on top of that, it even protects you from ads and malware. So you are free to immediately get access to anime, movies, TV shows from anywhere on the globe the moment you switch Surfshark VPN on, with your data absolutely secure, zero risk of being tracked, and zero ads. And for my viewers, you can use code MORGE to get 83% off Surfshark right now, plus 3 months completely free. You get a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have zero risk trying it out. Just hit the link in the description below. To begin with, what's most interesting about Aokiji is that he's the first and so far only Marine in the story that we follow who has an active shift from fully believing the world government without question to breaking free from its dogma. Think about it. Smoker was never one to blindly listen to authority in the first place. Kobe was able to immediately tell right from wrong even before joining the Marines. Garp has always known that the celestial dragons that run the world government are a problem. Fujitora from day one has been critical of the world government, so on and so forth. Aokiji is crucial to One Piece's narrative as he is the only Marine we've ever been introduced to who begins his character arc with complete subservience to the world government and its decisions, and then learns to question his beliefs. Initially, when we meet him, we see that if he is told that a certain act is for the greater good of the world, then he will comply without question. However, Aokiji also understood at his core that there is no such thing as unquestionable justice. What is correct or incorrect is something that can change based on perspective. He may even subconsciously have realized the same principle that Oda preaches throughout the story through various characters, that justice is a nebulous concept, and that it is more important for individuals to determine for themselves what is right or wrong. However, Aokiji, at the point in time of the Ohara incident, believes that this type of thinking should ultimately come second to what he is told by authority is for the greater good. That's part of what makes Aokiji such an interesting character. He is the rare figure who is aware of the importance of free thought, but initially places it as a secondary priority to following one's duty. Most other characters we see fall more clearly into either one line of thinking or the other. Even among the Marines, either you are a free thinker who breaks the rules like Garp, Kobe, Smoker, or Fujitora, or you are an obedient soldier who enforces the status quo like Akainu, Kizaru, Green Bull, etc. Aokiji starts off with both sides to his mentality, and even respects Saul for living by his preference for freedom of thought. Aokiji simply personally places his own freedom of thought below his obedience to authority. However, that's why this moment is so important. the moment that the ship of the Oharan citizens is destroyed. This is the moment that we see Aokiji's hierarchy of beliefs get reshuffled in real time. The destruction of civilian ships, the execution of innocent lives for no reason, is enough to shake his belief that what he is doing is truly for the greater good. And if what he is doing is not truly for the greater good, then maybe he shouldn't be placing the world government's orders above his own decisions after all. But the brilliance of this scene and the context it provides for the rest of the Enies Lobby storyline is that it's not as though Aokiji simply becomes a changed man after this. It's not like he suddenly decides to stop following the world government and to make his own decisions on right and wrong. Instead, Aokiji finds himself at a crossroads. He has a question he wants to answer for himself. Is it actually correct to follow the world government's justice with absolute obedience? And so he decides to give himself an experiment. He will let one little girl go. A girl that the world government has told him is evil and needs to be exterminated, but who he himself doesn't necessarily believe needs to be killed. Aokiji wants to closely observe Robin. If Robin grows up to be evil, then that would mean that the world government was right, and Aokiji should have just obediently followed orders and killed off Robin as the last trace of Ohara 20 years ago. If Robin grows up evil, it would essentially prove that the orders to kill the scholars were ultimately correct. However, if Robin grows up to be a good person, one who even makes the world a better place, then that would mean that Aokiji following his heart was correct, and that his friend Saul was correct to tell him to think for himself. The story of Robin is so important to the story of Aokiji, because Robin's path helps determine Aokiji's path. The type of person she becomes was crucial to shifting Aokiji's point of view, as we see at the end of Enies Lobby. So where we leave off with Aokiji at the end of the Enies Lobby storyline is a man who is still at a crossroads, but his little experiment with Nico Robin seems to have nudged him in one direction a bit more. Aokiji now realizes he may have made the right choice by disobeying the world government 20 years ago at Ohara all along. From here we get no more hints as to what Aokiji's new beliefs may be, but we get an extremely strong indicator when we find out 2 years later that Aokiji took a stand against the new direction of the Marines by fighting against Akainu in a life or death match for the sake of the future of the organization. And not only did Aokiji fight back against Akainu taking the helm, Aokiji then refused to be a part of the Marines at all if Akainu was the leader. So all of this paints out Aokiji to be a very admirable character so far, right? He started off as a brainwashed soldier of the Marines who understood that individuals' perspectives do have value, but ultimately prioritized following orders above all else. However, when he was shown the potential moral flaws with this path, he gave himself the opportunity to test the truth of his principles, and decided to see what would happen if he made his own decision rather than follow the world government's. From this experiment, he seemed to change in some way, opening up his mind and way of thinking. He became more aware of the dangers of following the world government's absolute justice, as Aokiji thought that was wrong in Ohara, and after seeing how Robin turned out 20 years later, Aokiji now knows that absolute justice isn't correct, as absolute justice would have dictated that he kill Robin from the start. And so of course Aokiji fights back against Akainu, as Akainu represents absolute justice, essentially Aokiji's last stand against the flawed thinking of the Marines that he has broken free from. Again, all admirable so far, right? So then why is he now with Blackbeard? Not as a double agent, as some secret member of SWORD, why is he genuinely siding with the worst pirate in the world? I look back at the most important page in all of Marineford, at least in my opinion, where we see Akainu and Blackbeard juxtaposed with each other. One showing the evil, flawed philosophy of the Marines as he rants about eliminating all pirates without impunity, and the other showcasing the evil, destructive dangers of pirates as he rants about tearing down everyone and everything. The idea is that here both Akainu and Blackbeard represent the worst of both sides, which is why it's so interesting that Aokiji, in breaking free of Akainu's side, actually just switches over to Blackbeard's. Just when we think we've seen a great character transformation of Aokiji freeing himself from the brainwashing of the Marines, it turns out that he's actually just going from one dark side to the other. It makes no sense, does it? Well, it does if you look closely at the truth behind what it is implied Aokiji is doing. To begin with, it is made absolutely explicitly clear that Aokiji is not joining the Blackbeard pirates because he agrees with their morals or their goals. He only joins when Blackbeard explains that he can give Aokiji freedom to pursue his own goal. It isn't about helping Blackbeard do what he wants. It is very clearly about Aokiji using this as an avenue to getting what he wants, even if we don't know what that is yet. To think that Aokiji is suddenly a bad person because of this alliance with Blackbeard is contradictory to everything else we're being told, as Aokiji outright tells Smoker, "I'm still the same person." This is still the same Aokiji we know, the same man that stood against Akainu because he has a moral backbone. The same man who allowed the world's most condemned criminal to live because he is ultimately a man with a good heart and a fair sense of justice. We are also told that Aokiji is currently on a determined mission to do something that is being left ambiguous. Doflamingo makes this observation as he leaves their encounter. Even though he's heard bad things about Aokiji, what he sees now is that this is a man that is determined to do something that none of us can understand at the moment. So looking back at the bar scene with Blackbeard, that's the key aspect that is highlighted. Aokiji is not working with Blackbeard to aid Blackbeard, Aokiji is joining to further his own agenda. There is something that he himself wants to do, that he believes can be better accomplished by using the Blackbeard pirates. There is arguably a strong parallel here to Luffy from the beginning of the Egghead Island arc, where Luffy reveals his true desire to the crew, but Oda cuts away without revealing what that is. With Aokiji, it's the same thing. He is asked what his true desire is, and Oda cuts away. So in this case, what is Aokiji's true dream? What dream would make him make a deal with the devil, even if perhaps only temporarily? Well, this may be verging more into speculation than analysis, but I think there is overwhelming evidence that Aokiji's goal is still a morally sound one. The key thing to remember is that Aokiji's personal sense of justice was always good from the start. His character arc was just about learning to follow that personal sense of justice instead of blindly following orders. As such, I think it's deliberate that when we now get to see a fully freed Aokiji, finally truly following his own sense of justice and pursuing what he believes is right, even if others say it is wrong, it is meant to look questionable from the outside at first. I think that is a common trend throughout One Piece, that following one's own sense of justice and going against the grain is often going to make you look really bad without full context. Think about the reputation Luffy and his crew have accrued as terrorists. Think about Sabo, think about Saul, think about the question marks even we the readers still have about certain characters. Like, why did Roger fight to protect celestial dragons at God Valley? As such, even if we the reader can't yet understand a clear reason why Aokiji would be working with Blackbeard, we need to remember two things: that Aokiji has always had a good moral compass from the start, and that his character arc up till now has been learning to listen to that moral compass instead of what the outside world tells him is correct. The fact that he is inexplicably doing something that seems wrong to us right now, but Oda is very deliberately leaving out the actual reason as to why he is doing it, while simultaneously playing up the fact that Aokiji seems to have actually grown and become a more enlightened person, does all suggest that there is much more to Aokiji right now than meets the eye. Just look at the scene we have in front of us. It's being framed as Garp fighting his fallen disciple in order to save his new disciple who still walks the right path, but that is blatantly incorrect. Oda is certainly making Garp look heroic and trying to make Aokiji look like the villain, but the interesting thing is, we should know at this point that in the broader context of the story, it is actually Garp who is mistaken and Aokiji who is correct. Garp thinks he is trying to bring Aokiji back to the light, but the truth is, the Marines are not actually the light. The truth is, the world government is the darkness, and Aokiji is actually the one who has correctly seen the light and realized that the world government is not the right side to be on, especially under Akainu's regime. Remember, Aokiji leaving the Marines has been portrayed as a positive realization for him. From Ohara to Nico Robin's growth to the battle with Akainu, Aokiji's story at every step has been of learning to stop listening to what others tell him is right and to start following his own instinct. And even now, fighting against his own mentor, he is standing by that new belief. So even if we want to side with Garp here because Garp is awesome and we've been following this mission from his perspective, and even if Aokiji looks like the bad guy right here because he's standing with the Blackbeard pirates, all the broader context of the story tells us that things are not as straightforward as they seem. So at the end of the day, why then is Aokiji siding with Blackbeard? What could possibly be a justified reason to aid the worst pirate in the world? What is the morally sound goal Aokiji is supposedly pursuing that needs to be hidden from the reader? Who knows? It's likely we won't fully understand Aokiji for a while. Because remember, the same way we were first introduced to Aokiji as a harsh marine, only to finally understand his more noble motives 100 chapters later, so too does it seem that his new portrayal as an evil pirate has some sort of more nuanced motivation that will likely not be revealed to us for some time. And so from his first appearance all the way to the present day, Aokiji remains the most morally ambiguous character in One Piece. Let me know your thoughts on Aokiji's motivations in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video then definitely like and subscribe, and you can get my theories on Aokiji's true goals in my Extended Thoughts podcast by becoming a member. Just hit the button below.